All right, Zangief, the Russian bear. Now this is a guy that's too effective for cage fight. Neck attacks, completely illegal in mixed martial arts. You can't grab the trachea. So headbutts are illegal in mixed martial arts, and I don't think they're ever coming back. All right, let's take a look at Ryu, classic character from Street Fighter 2. I remember wasting all those quarters in Street Fighter 2 playing Ryu because he had no like giant disadvantages, no massive advantages, just a good, well-rounded martial artist. And I like that about him. He gets buffer and buffer every Street Fighter that comes out. So he's really loading up. All right, that uppercut to the body, such an underrated punch, right? You think you're going uppercut to the head, but just go a little shorter, go right to the body, get him right in the sternum, get him choking. So a guy that buff fighting, you know he's gonna gas out in like one round. So he's gotta go for an early knockout here. You need a lot of fuel to rub that much muscle. All right, he's taking on Dhalsim here, doing a Superman punch, spinning back kicks. And that's what's always great about video games. They love like the big flashy moves, right? Spinning back kicks, jumping in the air, jumping attacks. Generally the guys that are not quite as built, they're a lot better at having good cardio. Not always the case. You can be buff and have good cardio or be scrawny and have bad cardio, but you want to be fast. When you have big hulking muscles, you generally don't have like the good fast twitch muscles. You have the just like, I've been doing bench presses and deadlifts in my basement for 10 years muscle, which has its advantages, but it can slow you down as well. Because your muscles, what you train them to do is what they're gonna do. If you're training your muscles just to lift Toyotas all day long, then you're gonna have muscles that do that. If you're training your muscles to be quick and fast twitch and reactive, then they're gonna do that. So steroids is always a hot topic in professional cage fighting. Honestly, like what we're demanding of our athletes, we're like, hey, you need to fight twice a year, you need to be strong, you need to have, you know, muscles that can handle all this, and you gotta be able to handle the rigors of training. Because like so often when we think fighters using steroids, we think, oh, they're just using them to get really buff. There's a lot of times fighters use growth hormones so that they can recover from injury faster. Fighters use EPO sometimes to help them have better cardio. Just having like just big hulking muscles, like yeah, something that's part of it, but we're asking a lot of fighters to be able to be at their absolute peak, and having them not use performance enhancing drugs is often a big ask. Look, it's against the rules, and rules are rules, but I understand the temptation for a lot of these fighters. All right, Ryu's in a southpaw stance, which means right foot forward. He likes to switch stance often. Dodging fireballs is not something I've trained a lot in mixed martial arts, which is probably a good thing that Ryu has and I haven't. So the jumping attacks, that's such a big part of Street Fighter, is fighters like jumping and doing a somersault. That's like, you never ever see that in mixed martial arts. You'll see the rare jumping attack, like you think of like Anthony Pettis, who did the Showtime kick, jumping off of the cage and landing a kick. He also did a Showtime punch against Wonderboy Thompson in Nashville in 2019, where he jumped off the cage and did a punch. That might be the next evolution of mixed martial arts. We've been waiting for it to happen. We've seen kind of spurts of it, but we haven't really seen it really in MMA all that much. But certainly in fighting games, especially Street Fighter, it's a massive part of it. Uppercut. Jumping uppercuts are so great. It's a damaging punch. I imagine scoring a jumping uppercut and getting a knockout is probably like every one of your Christmases as a kid put together, and you're getting a Nintendo every single time. It has to be the best feeling. All right, Zangief, the Russian bear. Now this is a guy who has the giant physique, but it's useful for him because he's a grappler. He's trying to get his paws on you, slam you, doing, of course, that spinning pile driver that he's famous for, and still he's got hops. Grabbing the head, punching. That's what you do when you're slower, too. When you're a slower fighter, you want to get your hands on them because you're going against like a quicker, faster, kind of more savvy striker. You want to be able to slow everything down, get your paws on them, get in the clinch, punch from the clinch, go for takedowns. That's what you're looking for when you're the bigger, stronger fighter, and you're slower. Overhand right, classic mixed martial arts strike. The best places to hit your opponent. So often, when you're going for a knockout, you either want to hit the chin because it spins your head around and that twists your spinal column and that makes you get knocked out. The nose, because if you can break their nose, you're in a good position. And if you can hit behind the ear, that's how you knock out their equilibrium. So if you can hit them right here, that's when you get guys getting stanky legs and kind of wobbling around. Their body is still working, but their brain isn't talking to their body. That's what happens when you hit them right here, right behind the ear. See, just covering up. See, that's a great technique by Zangief. Your opponent's opening up. When they're opening up with a giant combination, big spinning techniques, if you can cover, you can get a counter on them. So when guys are coming at you just with everything they've got, just a wall of violence, the bigger the attack that you're doing, the less reaction time you have defensively. So if I'm just throwing a quick jab, I can still be in big position. If I'm throwing 17 spinning attacks all in a row, I'm gonna be off balance. There's no way I can do all that and still be sound defensively. So you're seeing Zangief do what you're supposed to do. Weather the storm, and as soon as they're done, you go in for your takedown. Look at the guns on this guy. I'd be flexing constantly if I were him. And props to Zangief too. Like, you see too many fighters completely shave their bodies. Like, they have like perfect tans and just not a single hair ears down. Zangief's going chest hair out, like a man. I would say the closest MMA fighter I can think of that has a Street Fighter star would be someone like Yair Rodriguez. Big, flashy kicks, jumping around. Everything is attack, tack, tack, go, go, go. Seems like gravity doesn't really affect him. And I learned today his name's pronounced Zangief. I've been calling him Zangief for 30 years. All right, Jamie, semi-new character, not a Street Fighter 2 character. Look at that hair. That is some flowing locks. Oh, see, neck attacks, completely illegal in mixed martial arts. You can't grab the trachea. You can choke them. You can do side chokes. You can do short chokes, which is where you just take like the bone of your wrist and shove it into their trachea. But just grabbing that thing, you can't do it. Almost all mixed martial arts fighters at a high level that have long hair, they do like cornrows or tight braids. Because even just like putting it in like a ponytail, that stuff's coming out. So you can't fight in the pocket with someone as big as E Honda. You gotta stick and move when you're the faster fighter. So you're not allowed to pull the hair. Fighters with long hair, it gets in the way more than it helps, because it just kind of gets in your eyes and gets out of the way. You got Clay Guida, who was famous for like his long hair, and it was almost like an advantage. He was a rare guy who was almost kind of an advantage, because it kind of helped him get out of choke sometimes, but you're constantly just like getting it out of your face. Like, you need good vision. See, this is a great combination here. Punch, punch, spinning attack, using the momentum of your attack to play off itself. Everything kind of flows together. You're using your momentum. If you throw with your right hand, you come around with your left. If you're throwing hard with the right, you can keep that centrifugal force and do a spinning attack. Just keeping everything flowing is the goal. Jumping hair attack. First time I've seen it. These graphics are great. Like, it's because Street Fighter is famous for its, two-dimensional gaming, right? It's just linear fighting, but they're very realistic. The colors pop. You've always got kind of something cool happening in the background, just enough where like it looks cool without being distracting. And the two-dimensional game, just kind of linear fighting, it helps in some ways, because once you add a third dimension and you're cutting angles, it drastically changes how you can fight. But when it's just linear and just two-dimensional, yes, you lose a big chunk of fighting, which is cutting angles, cutting fighters off, putting them in a corner, but that also lets you just open everything up. So instead of worrying about that element of it, you're just like, all right, you're in, you're out, just going one again, just two dimensions. It really lets you just kind of open up that element of the game. Kind of like mixed martial arts striking versus boxing. In boxing, if all you have to worry about is your two fists, you can do a lot of things. You can just really open up that tiny part of the game. In MMA, when you have to worry about elbows, punches, knees, kicks, clinch, all that other stuff, you don't really get to maximize it, right? You don't get to maximize just the boxing. So in a two-dimensional game like this, you can just maximize two-dimensional fight. All right, Marissa getting in on the action. Look at the size of this girl. This is like Gabby Garcia, just the biggest female fighter in the history of female fighting. Just a hulking monster. Overhand left. Oh, and a twist for good measure. Oh, just an FU. So the difference between women and men's MMA, the techniques are generally the same. All the rules are, of course, the same. But because their body styles are different, you see like women are generally more flexible. So they're kind of more looking towards jiu-jitsu. They're also harder to submit because they're a lot more flexible. Men tend to be a little faster, fast reaction time, and because they're naturally stronger, they have more knockout power. So you see a little bit more grappling with women's MMA than you do with men's MMA, just because of just their natural advantages and disadvantages. Also, men don't have to take a pregnancy test before they fight. Women do. Big overhand punches, big Superman punches. Oh, and a double leg takedown. There's different types of takedowns in mixed martial arts. There's multiple ways you can shoot a double leg. If you truly commit to a double leg, you drop your levels, drive through, you have a better chance for success. But if you're countered, you're stuck in a worse position. This double leg takedown, she's kind of bent over and sweeped it, which isn't a higher chance of success, but there's a much lower rate of getting countered. You're less likely to get like a guillotine or submission attempt on you. There's different ways of shooting takedowns. She went for kind of a lower risk, lower rate of success type double leg. All right, here's Luke. That is a blast double leg right out of the gate. Just standard operating procedure for like a wrestler MMA fighter. Double leg takedown, get on top, ground and pound. There it is again. Blast double leg, get on top, in mount, punch, punch, punch. And the further away you are, the more damage you can make. So you'll see with ground and pound fighters that are worried about their opponent getting up, they're just gonna smash them. Forehead in their jaw, both their hands pushing them down. They wanna make sure they don't get up. Fighters that rear up, you're less likely to keep your opponent down, but you can get more power. You have more distance between your punch and your opponent. And you see guys that really wanna do damage stand over you and drop bombs. All right, we got Luke versus Blanca. I believe Blanca is in Brazil. So it makes sense to make him a Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner, but instead they made him a mutant. So headbutts are illegal in mixed martial arts, and I don't think they're ever coming back. But they were a big part of like wrestlers' ground and pound games in the early days of the UFC when they were still legal. I swear, if headbutts were still legal, Mark Coleman would still be champion at like 80 years old. It was just such a great weapon. Using the hardest part of your body, the front of your skull, and you're going against some of the softest parts of your opponent. The cartilage in their nose, their teeth, their face. That's why they took it out. It was too effective. A move that's too effective for cage fighting. That's the headbutt. And see, if you can get guys cornered, I kind of like in these two-dimensional games, you can get a guy pushed all the way to the back. That's kind of the same as getting a guy up against the cage. You don't let them back off. You can kind of corner them in there. So you still kind of have some of the footwork that you do in mixed martial arts, but that's just in 2 dimensions. Look at that salon quality hair too. Jealous. Thank you so much for having fun with me today on Experts React. This was Street Fighter 6. Again, I'm RJ Clifford. You can catch me on SiriusXM Radio. You can follow me on the Twitter and Instagram machines as well, at RJ Clifford MMA. And don't forget to follow Experts React on Facebook and YouTube.